So how would we go about to reduce SAT to shortest tour? Or how do you generally go about showing NP completeness when the two problems that you have are not related to each other? So let's briefly just restate what the SAT problem is and the shortest tour problem, and then let's try to relate the two to each other. So SAT was a problem where you were given as input a Boolean formula, and the output or question was, does the formula have a satisfying assignment? And of course, that is a yes or no question because we're dealing with a decision problem here. And shortest tour, that's easy to remember because we talked about it a lot so far in this course. The input was a graph with distances, and we said we need a number d in order to make this a decision problem. And the question here was, is there a tour of length at most d? And by tour we mean that we want to visit all vertices at least once, but we can visit them more than once. So now comes the creative part. How on earth are we going to take a Boolean formula and turn this into a problem related to mail delivery? And it's not obvious. So what I always find useful to do in these cases is to just write down all the properties that a Boolean formula has, that a satisfying assignment has. So anything I can think of for SAT, and then write down properties of the shortest tour problem and see if I can find a certain relationship between them, because oftentimes that will give me an idea of how to accomplish a reduction like this. So let's see. Properties of SAT. The first one is each variable is set to either true or false, but not both. So it's either true or false. And these are all trivial properties, but let's see if they help us. And actually, deciding whether a variable should be true or false is what makes this problem hard. So I can also write that down. So deciding this true or false for each variable is what makes SAT hard. Then what you will also remember is that when we talk about a Boolean formula, then we can write it in conjunctive normal form, which is this form here where we have a bunch of variables that are combined by an OR, then brackets around that, then comes an and then comes again a series of ORs, and then comes an and so on. And this part here we learned in the last unit was called a clause. So first of all, if there is a satisfying assignment, each clause must be satisfied. So how do you satisfy a clause? Well, since in a clause, as you remember, we just have ORs between the variables, this means that one single variable, if it's set in the right way, so either to true or to false if we have a variable with a not, then setting one single variable the right way is enough to satisfy that clause. And so we should probably also write that down. One variable is enough to satisfy a clause. Let's see if we can do the same thing for shortest tour. So what are some properties of a shortest tour? Well, first of all, every city must be visited at least once, because otherwise it's not a valid tour. The main decision we need to make is, of course, in which order we visit the city. And once we have visited a city, we can visit it again, but we don't have to. And the final thing is, we don't visit a city more than once on purpose. So at a certain point in time, we might want to visit a city once more because it's beneficial, but in a shortest tour, we wouldn't visit a city more than once unless it's necessary. So I'm going to phrase this as, we don't visit a city more than once on purpose. Now you might be wondering why I have left the numberings here blank, and that is because we're now going to have a little quiz here. Because what I would like you to think about is, here we have 4 different properties of SAT. And here we have 4 different properties of shortest tour. I would like you to find out which properties of shortest tour are most closely related to these properties here of SAT. So this is a bit tricky and subjective, but I think it's very valuable to learn this style of thinking. So before you hit next out of frustration, please at least spend a little bit of time trying to figure this out, and then enter here the number that you think most closely corresponds over here. So if I were to say that deciding true or false is what makes SAT hard, is a close analogy to every city visited at least once, I would enter a 2 here. But this is actually not a correct answer. And also I've structured it so that each number here will only appear once. So how are these two related?